Welcome back to the Integrated Mindset Podcast. I am Ryan Sawyer, and I will be your only host today. My wife is taking a break because I'm going to have a fantastic conversation with an incredible friend of mine. We're doing another Impact Makers, and today we have Colton Prete. So thank you for joining us, Colton.
My pleasure.
Yeah, excited for you about you being here. So before we get started about your story and why you're here and the impact you're here to make and the hole you see and how you're going to fill it, I just want to urge people, if you're listening to this show, that means that you're somebody who wants to change something in their life. You want to transform your life. You want to make an impact. You want something to be different. You have big goals. You have a burning desire, or you're just curious about how to create that burning desire in your life. You want those deeper connections. You want to be able to create an unshakable confidence. You want more meaning in your life. And if that is you, keep listening, because what you're about to hear from this young man, I'm going to call you young man if you're okay with that. It makes me feel old. But what you're about to hear from this young man, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I don't know where we're going to go, but we've been in a relationship for a few years now and have connected on multiple different levels. And I just know this is going to be an episode that you want to tune into if you want something greater for your life and for your family and for your community and for the world. So keep listening. If that is not you, you can go ahead and tune out, because that's where we're going. And so we're going to develop an integrated mindset by having that conversation together. So Colton, before we dive in, my camera just went goofy on me. So I'm going to just give it 1 second here. Before we dive in, there we go. I would love to the hole that you see in the world and the impact that you're here to make. I would love just to hear from you a little bit about your background, your life, where you come from. I know you come from Southern Alberta, Canada. And I know, just for anybody listening, Colton is a 4th-year medical student. And we met in your first year. Was it your first year? You were in this beginning, the first year of medical school, when we first met and first kind of started to have conversations and work together. Is that right?
Yeah. First year.
Yeah. Right. So give us a little bit of background of just, kind of your upbringing and what has brought you to being interested in wanting to go into the medical field.
Yeah. I grew up small town, Fort Macleod, Alberta, out in the prairies. I am the youngest of 4 children. I have 3 older sisters, and 2 of them were nurses and 1 of them was a dental hygienist. And so having their older examples to look up to, that was kind of one of the positive impact methods that was right there in front of me, was medicine and healing, and seeing their examples and hearing their stories just added a little bit of glory to it. They were my heroes, seeing them walk before me. And so medicine was kind of the natural path that I initially wanted to walk. I mean, of course, when you're young, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a firefighter, all the different things pop up, but medicine was the one that always stuck. And so I did my undergrad at BYU Provo in exercise science. I've always had an inclination and a practice in yoga, and so kind of having like the mind, body, spirit healing, as well as the beyond just traditional Western medicine, has always been there on my mind. And I came to medical school, and my experiences here have been kind of funny. When I first started, psychiatry was the one field I knew I didn't want to go into. That was just seemed the furthest from my scope. And then as I went through medical school, I think going through school during COVID had an impact on it. Now psychiatry, that's psych or bust. That's what I want to go into. I had the pleasure of doing my 200-hour yoga teaching certificate during medical school, which was a very difficult time to do it. But it really tied things together for me. Like that really put things into perspective of, yes, like I want to be a doctor who knows how to address and see and connect with people on mind, body, and spirit, the medicine, the psychiatry, I'm an osteopath, so having the connection with people's body and being able to heal through people's body as well. That's all kind of come together into this a lot more natural spot for me. I mean, you talk about osteopathy and psychiatry, and that's usually two opposite ends of the field. But for me, it's all come together really beautifully, and has been quite cohesive into painting a picture of kind of the impact that I want to make in the world, and the doctor that I want to be, and the population that I want to serve. Yeah.
Yes. So when you talk to people, when they think medical school, they automatically think like traditional Western medicine doctor, MD, right? And you're going to be, the end of your name is going to be a DO, right? And so whenever I talk to people about you, or we have conversations about the medical world, like this is a whole like avenue of the medical world that I wasn't even familiar with before you and I met and had conversations. And so would you just give us a little bit more of like, how are these two different? And then the next question, just so as you're kind of going through this, maybe you'll answer it, is I would love to hear a little bit more of like how your yoga journey really influenced your clarity in the direction that you wanted to go. But let's first start off with just how are these two, based upon what we all kind of picture immediately when we think about medical school, about MD, about the family practitioner, about, just, medicine in general versus the path that you're going.
Yeah. So the path that I'm going is still very like traditional medicine at its core based. In America, we have allopathic physicians, MD, and osteopathic physicians, DO. They historically they were a little bit more polarized in their school of teaching, their school of approach. But we've both realized that each school has some tremendous benefits and some really cool ideas. And so today, I think that there's very, very little difference in the way that we approach medicine. We work very collaboratively. There's MDs and DOs in all subspecialties of medicine. Right. Your general surgeon, your ENT, your whatever field of medicine, there's going to be DOs and MDs. And most people, unless you're like really plugged into the medical world, don't even know if their doctor's a MD or a DO.
Gotcha.
They're both physicians. They both went to medical school. The only difference in their training is that DOs have an additional 200 hours of manipulative medicine training.
Okay.
So maybe think of like physical therapy or chiropractics, where it's hands-on. You're putting hands on a patient and you're putting the body into a special position and doing some manipulation, whether that's like the traditional going for a crack or a pop. That's one of the tools that we have. There's kind of 9 limbs. I think like the 8 limbs of yoga. There's 9 limbs of osteopathy, different tools that we have, where a lot of times it's just putting the body into a position and holding it there, whether that's into a position of ease and relaxation or engaging a barrier and holding it at the barrier. And you hold it there until a release is felt. And then it all builds on one of the core tenets of osteopathy, that the body is a self-healing unit, and we're just helping the body heal itself.
Love that. So how did, and I'm assuming you kind of mentioned that it did, yoga or your yoga certification or the path of just the idea of integrating those two, like how did that influence you? Because were you as clear about this path before the yoga journey, or was that you knew you were going that direction all along?
Yeah, the yoga has always been a really safe place for me. And it's been just a core part of my being, I think more so than I realized until I did the 200 hours, and that really solidified it. Yeah, just being a high achiever in life, always kind of wanting to be the best and do the best and trying to get in the zone and really being my best self. Yoga has been one of the most impactful tools to get there.
Yeah.
All through high school, being captain of multiple teams and exercising hours and hours a day and finding the time to do my yoga practice, like that was what was healing, and that was what was plugged me in. And I didn't ever really know why. I wasn't super keyed into the philosophies of yoga, more just the asanas. And when I did my 200-hour training and really was able to jump into the philosophies and why yoga does that for us, and how it's more than just our body, recognizing like the meditation side and the breath work side and really engaging at some other limbs. It really just opened my eyes and was like, yes, like this is what I've been touching on. Now I know how to jump in and grab it fully. And I've seen so many crossovers between yoga and osteopathy, where I feel like I'm doing osteopathic treatments on myself sometimes when I'm doing yoga, because
Sure.
we put the body into a position, and then we hold it and we breathe into that space, and then a release is felt, and clarity comes, and healing comes, and your back that's been hurting, you go and do yoga, and all of a sudden your back doesn't hurt anymore. Like there is a healing process that happens during yoga. And a lot of those same principles and steps are what we're looking to achieve in osteopathy,
Right.
but in someone else's body.
Yeah, I love that. Heidi and I were just having a conversation yesterday, about, I'm sure there are people who are able to use their own mental faculties to help other people heal. But really, the reality is that you're able to facilitate an experience where the individual themselves are able to put their body into a certain position, into a certain state, that their body heals, right? Like just this idea that there's people who are healers. I tend to struggle with that just a little bit. It's really like we can teach through what you do, what we do, the integration of yoga and medicine for the individual themselves to learn how to heal themselves, to be able to, for their body to be the miracle, right? For their body to be able to self-heal. So I love that you brought that up. That was exactly what Heidi and I were just talking about yesterday, is like, we don't even consider ourselves coaches, right? We just consider ourselves like facilitators of principle and of practice that allow for people to become the healers of their own lives. So I just love that you're saying that. It's in alignment with exactly what we do. So let's go into the next question. Like, if you just think about every single person, and we say this on the Impact Makers podcast, like this one, one of the aspects that we really focus on is that helps people come to self-healing mechanisms of their own bodies, of their own lives, right? Is psychological safety, right? Is when a human feels safe in all the different areas of life and the basic human needs of life, then their untapped potential becomes available to them. One of the things that creates psychological safety on a very kind of extensive scale is when you know what your unique specialty role is in the world. And the one way that we can help people find that specialty role is for them to identify the whole that they see. If you think about the world or the universe, each and every single individual can see a specific hole that's different than the next person. Like, you are here to fill that hole, right? And so when I ask you, when you think about the world, and maybe it's within medicine, maybe it's in the, whatever it is, whatever world you think, what is the hole that you see?
Yeah, as you say that just brings to mind one of my favorite yogis, Dylan Werner. He said in an interview, they were talking about like the purpose of life and how people stumble on that all the time. When the purpose of life is easy, the purpose of life is to share your meaning. And then it's what's the meaning of life, but it's what's the meaning of my life. And that's different for everybody. You get to decide that. And so the purpose of life is just to share your meaning, or to fill the hole that you see.
Yeah.
I really like that. The meaning of my life, what gives my life meaning, is sharing light and creating light where there isn't any. And that makes it really easy to engage in fulfilling the meaning of my life, because I don't have to be a doctor yet to do that. When I'm a doctor, I'll have greater capacity and greater tools to do that. But now, as a medical student, well, medical students have a lot on their plate and they're going through a lot, and we're always on the verge of a psychotic break. There's lots of light to be spread there. Or when you're at the grocery store and you see someone struggling, like, you can engage in that. You can spread light to someone. I think some really impactful moments that keyed this in for me, when shortly before we met, I was having my own psychotic breaks. I was horribly depressed and had been for years and years, and wasn't really seeing the growth and healing that I wanted. And I kind of likened it to an analogy of, I felt like I was underwater, and I was just like so far underwater, there wasn't much light, and you stay in that state for so long that it's not that you get used to it, but you have time to look around, and you're so preoccupied with just trying to make it to the surface for breath. Eventually you look around and you realize, like, you're not alone down there. There's a lot of other people that are struggling underwater as well. And sometimes sometimes the focus isn't so much trying to get up for a breath. Like, don't worry, breath will come. Maybe it won't. That doesn't matter. Maybe less concerned with living or dying, but can we help people out while we're down here? Is there other people that we can help? And through that mindset and connecting with you and a lot of the work that we did, as well as getting some good medication on board and finding some stabilizing regimens, found my own healing and realized, like, wow, there was no light in my life that I could reach, and I got plugged into some. My light was lit through a number of different tools. They all came together in a perfect storm and brought me out. And if that could happen to me, like, that was the worst place, some of the darkest places in the world that I was aware of, and that was pretty phenomenal. I want to do that for other people. Like, that was an invaluable gift that I'll be forever grateful for everybody that helped me out. Like, I would love to be able to now give back and do that. And so that plugs in, what tools do I have at my disposal to do that? Well, this idea of helping people engage a barrier or engage in their ease and find a position where they can receive healing. On my medical rotations, I was on an osteopathic manipulation rotation and had a fibromyalgia patient who comes in with 10 out of 10 debilitating pain. Like, you touch them with one finger just about anywhere on their body and it feels like they're just getting punched, debilitating disease. And I had the privilege to work on them and to begin manipulating them. And how do you heal someone where your touch inflicts so much pain? Part of that was, one, having the confidence in my training that I knew how to position them, and I knew what I was supposed to feel. Their ability to feel in their body was somewhat disconnected. So I could put their body into a position and they're groaning and grunting and and all of a sudden you feel the tissues melt and you feel their breath return and they just sigh, and all of a sudden they can leave the office with a huge reduction in their pain. And call that like a release. You're looking for that good release. And that one was much more tactile, but I wasn't expecting that same experience when I was in the psych ward. Like, in the locked unit, you have people that are like severely sick, really mentally ill, with different schizophrenia breaks or manic episodes. And it just amazed me. People would come in and just literally living in another universe. And what do? We lock them in this unit where they're away from their friends, away from their family, from their work, from all of their social stressors. They're in this vacuum. We're putting them into a position of ease mentally. We're removing every stressor possible. All of their basic needs are provided for. There's basic ways that they can socialize. And we're doing our best to give them the medicines that we have that'll help. And after holding them in this position of ease for a couple of days, all of a sudden a release is felt and they come back to normal. Asterisk, whatever normal means. They come back to their baseline. There are a lot of chronically ill people that doesn't happen for, and it takes years and years of treatment to get them back to normal functioning. But especially some of the young people have such a capacity to heal, and they would come in and these same principles where I'm not putting my hands on them, but everything that I can to put them into a position of ease and letting their body heal itself. Sometimes it's helping them question their reality. Maybe we're going towards the barrier and then we're going to push through the barrier when we're ready, when we start feeling a little bit of resistance and the tissues are prepped right. Some of the osteopathic language. Doing a lot of this work mentally and verbally with people was like so fulfilling. And I feel like my yoga background and my osteopathic background, like those philosophies just so naturally and beautifully prepared me to step into psychiatry, where yes, like medication is a tool, but like the psychotherapies and just the way that we engage with people, I feel like there's so much potential to heal there, to spread light and to help people create their own light where there isn't any. And it's just such an underserved population, psychiatry everywhere. But having grown up in a rural area, rural health is already a passion of mine. So the hole that I want to fill is a rural psychiatric medicine. It's just some really underserved populations growing up near some of the reservations, especially, are vulnerable. Connecting with some of the different tribes, wherever I end up. But that's the hole that I'm running to full sprint as fast as I can, wanting to fill.
I love that. So going back here just for a moment, And this is sometimes we just, in our own experiences of life as human beings, when we're inside of our own bottle, it's hard for us to even recognize that other people are experiencing what we're experiencing. We sense that there's this sense when you're talking about being underneath the water, like this feeling that you're drowning, that you're alone in that, right? And I remember, and this is just like, interesting. I remember when we first met thinking, well, it's to me like somebody going into that field in medical school, going down the mental health like path to be able to serve others. Like it never occurred to me that somebody would be in their own mental struggle, right? That is on that journey. Like doctors struggle too. Like, yeah, man. Yeah. Firefighters, cops, doctors, teachers, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's like, this was just another layer where it's like, wow. Oh, so we're all just human beings. Okay. And that it's just so comforting to know that like we all are just on our paths. We're all doing our best and we can come together to support each other. And so what I hear about you saying here, and the question I have for you, Colton, is when you're working with that individual who is living in a different universe, and that's in a very intense environment. That's an intense, it's an intense situation or circumstance to put yourself into willingly, right? And it takes I'm assuming, as I hear you saying that, like when I'm working with someone who's really struggling, like it takes a ton of confidence on my end that number one, I have value, right? I've been there. I have credibility. I have experience. What I have to offer in the sense of philosophy or tools, principles and tools, practices, I know they can help if the person actually engages and integrates them into their life, right? If they allow for themselves to receive the help, right? But you're in that environment where you're working with someone who's obviously, in this other universe that you're speaking of. My question to you becomes to always point the mirror back at ourselves and say, like, how has it that, you're doing your own internal work to the level that you have, like you are, in case you haven't picked this up as a listener, like Colton is one of the most dedicated human beings to his own personal well-being I have ever met, right? When we were having conversations and I'd say something like, okay, here's how I'd like for you to start the day with your breath or with stillness or with these different things. And a week later, he came back and he did it. Like it was like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Right? Just digesting every single aspect and exploring and integrating the things that we talked about. And that's why the transformation is so clear. So my question again is that how much confidence does it give you, and how much does that make an influence on your ability to actually fill that hole, not only see the hole, but to fill it when you're in that moment with that patient? How important is it that you, before you walked into that room, for you have done your own work, right? And so this is true for whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, whether it's a coach. Like, we're all going to be better at what we do, therefore make a larger impact if we start with ourselves. So how important has that been, and or will continue to be, for you to actually be the best doctor that you can be, the best, be able to share your light, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that's everything, right? Like if I'm not plugged in, then I'm not plugged into my own work, to my own hope. I don't know what I'm offering to people. Like
Mm.
the outer world reflects the inner experience. And so if my inner experience is in turmoil, then I'm just going through the motions of the day. I'm not plugged into my life's meaning. I'm not able to offer that to other people. But each morning as I settle into my meaning, I connect with my purpose, I touch stillness, I engage with all the different practices of my morning routine. Now like the day is won. There's nothing left to do but to give, because I've already filled my own cup. And now when I go and I see someone who comes in with a recent suicide attempt and they've been depressed for years and they have a family that's depending on them, or they
Mm.
have on paper their whole life looks great but they just can't find meaning or love in the world, whatever, like these super hard situations, like I I love those moments because the first time I sit down, like I can look that person in the eye and say like don't worry. I know this is super hard right now, but this isn't forever.
Yeah,
This
this too
is
shall pass.
there's there's light coming, and I can show you how to get to it. We'll get there together. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. Like, I'm so glad that you made it in here. Like I'm so glad to see you today. I know that you're feeling miserable, but I'm so happy to see you because we're gonna go somewhere incredible. And
Yeah.
I can offer that confidently because I've walked that path. I have firsthand experience there. I've seen many people walk that path, and I know the steps well at this point. And I know I'm still very early in my psychiatric career, but as a healer, healing myself and healing others and spreading light, that's something I've been doing for forever. That's always been a part of me. It's something I've been exploring and enhancing. And I, if I'm not plugging in, I can't offer that to people. But the deeper my work gets, the more confidence I have to offer to other people, and the brighter my light is to be able to spread that to other people and pick up on where their vulnerabilities are and where their barriers are and where their tissues need to be taken to find their position of ease. I have to be able to feel that. And if I'm beyond feeling because I haven't plugged in, then my hands are tied.
Yeah. Do you know the mic drop that you just dropped? I mean, I can't wait to listen to this back, what your answer was. I cannot wait because, and I don't know if I got this word for word, but I tried to write it down as fast as I could. If I'm not plugged into my own work, I don't know what I'm offering. Just for a moment, like that hit me. I had chills all over my body. Like, just think about that for a moment. If we all got plugged in every single day, like what you're talking about, and we're not going to go into all the practices of how to plug in, like that's for somebody to actually reach out and figure out how do we plug in, right? You and I know what that means. But if we all plugged in, whether we are a stay-at-home mom or whether we're, you know, running a company or whether we're a doctor and we're helping people heal, like if we're all plugged in, we know what we're offering. Like you have to know what you're offering to be able to actually share your light, right? And I just, that hit me like a ton of bricks. We've crossed this threshold. I've told you multiple times in the last couple of times we talked. I feel like I take more notes when I talk to you than you do me. So yeah, the teacher has become the student has become the teacher. So tell me a little bit about, there's always a sacrifice. There's always a sacrifice, right? And so when it comes to you becoming the version of you that you are today, sitting here in front of us, having this conversation, complete clarity, like bulldozering towards the hole that you want to fill. You know exactly what that is, even all the way down to the idea of working with tribes and that's, you know, being able to like work towards that. What has been some of the practices that you have engaged with to be able to become this? What's been the mindset, and what did you have to let go of or sacrifice to become this version of you? Right. Because that's potentially what you have to continue to sacrifice going forward. Like to be able to share this light that you have and to be able to engage in your mission and to fill this hole, you have to sacrifice. There has to be a sacrifice, right? So what's been that mindset? What's been that sacrifice that you have made to be able to go fill that hole the way that you see yourself doing?
Yeah, the word sacrifice is interesting because sacrifice doesn't sound fun. It sounds hard and giving up the things that you really like. But what is sacrifice? It's giving up something that you have, something that you want for something of greater worth, right? So it's resistance. We have this resistance that we lean into. And then when you lean into the resistance, the clarity that comes after and the freedom that follows is so much more valuable than what you are holding on to. So sacrifice is hard. It's a hard habit to develop, but once you develop, like it's the funnest thing ever. My wife and I, we talk about this a lot, and the kind of how our lives have just totally transformed these last couple of years. And I use the perspective of like you have two students, right? One is a day behind and one is a day ahead. And the student that's ahead is like really organized, is always a day ahead and holds that pace, always a day ahead of the lectures, of the schoolwork, of whatever's going on, of the assignments, and the student that's a day behind is always just like out of breath, panting, frantic, disorganized, always a day behind. But their pace is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
They're working at the exact same pace, just one's ahead, one's behind, and it's perspective. Our day is often like that, where I feel like we would wake up when our kids woke up, and we'd go throughout our day, and we'd be running around kind of pretty frantic. And then as soon as the kids go down at the end of the day, we're just like doing everything we can to just relax, because this is the only time that we have to relax. So we're watching movies and shows that are just like not filling, entertaining at best, but aren't doing anything to fill us up. And then we're staying up late because we're avoiding tomorrow. And so then we approach the next day really tired. Whereas now we wake up a couple hours before our kids wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is our playtime. We wake up and we do our journaling. We spend a couple minutes reading a fun book that we want to read. We plug into connecting with deity. We exercise. We take care of our bodies. We make a nice breakfast. And then the kids wake up as we're making breakfast, and like our emotional, spiritual, physical, mental needs have all been addressed already. And we're approaching the day charged. Rather than spending all of our time trying to relax at the end of the day, we're spending all of our time charging up for the day.
Yeah.
And it's the same pace, but everything is changed. We're now like our patience with other people and our compassion for other people, our triggers are now, they just don't really hit us like we do. We'll kind of look at each other and be like, well, like I'm feeling like a little bit of a disturbance right now. I just need to give me 5 minutes, and then we'll go do 5 minutes to plug back in, rather than feeling the need to go hide in the bathroom for 30 minutes on our phone doing something.
Right.
And it's just been really interesting. And our practice is always developing and always changing based on what we need and kind of where we're growing into. But our goal setting has become laughable, because just our goals years down the road are now so much closer. And it's, oh, like that person that I wanted to become, and like this parent that I wanted to become, this student that I wanted to become, like who I wanted to be in life. Well, like we both feel like we're kind of like, we get that. Okay, well now what? Like that was supposed to take me a lot longer. Just when we thought before that we were at the edge of our capacity and at the limit of what we could accomplish, by plugging in every day and really slowly developing into a practice and giving ourselves permission to serve ourselves first, so that we can then approach the world with a cup that's full. Like now we realize like we haven't been at the edge of our capacity ever. Like what does that even look like? And now we can have fun trying to push that. And well, what else can we do? What else can we grow? What else can we become? And it's becoming harder and harder to find those barriers. And it's become really fun being able to do this with my wife, where we can then have conversations like, how do we further spread this to our kids? And how do we, without having them sit down and formally do like a meditation in the morning and do like this big routine with us, just in the way that we interact with them, how can we spread this to them? And seeing the positive impact just ripple into their lives. And without having them sit down and do a practice, just the way we interact, like who else can we spread this light to?
Just by modeling.
Yeah.
So you said a couple of things, a couple more mic drops in there. You're on a roll. So serve others first, so we can come with a full cup, right? You talk about
serve ourselves first.
Serve ourselves first, so we can come to others with a full cup, right? That to me, like there's so many little things that you're talking about here that are potentially even against the grain from what other people have either what's been modeled or what's been influenced, or the messages out there. One of the things that we talk about, Colton, is that there's just so much information. It's information overload out in the world. And so it's easy for us to kind of get stuck or frozen in not knowing what we should be doing next, or what's going to actually help us to be able to reach the goal that we want to reach. I just love that you're saying that your goals are almost laughable, because you're able to just progress through them so quickly that what maybe you thought was going to take you 5 years now took you a few months. And then And then now it's like, oh, well, completely changes the vision you have for yourself in your life, right? Therefore, the vision that's potential for the world. So that's my next question to you. Because of this approach to life that you have created, where you're serving yourself first, so you come to the world with a full cup, where you're plugged in, so then you know what you're offering. So you're able to have this mindset that's like, well, what else? What I heard from you is that you have a sense of like legitimately you feel, which we all hear, we are as human beings, our mind is so powerful. Our mind is unlimited, right? Like that we're the only thing limiting ourselves. What I heard from you is legitimately that you are able to be in the place where you're resting in that sense of being unlimited. Like when you're asking that question, what else? You feel unlimited, which, you know, we're not going to go down the spiritual path here or the spiritual conversation of like what that means to us, but that's just what's coming from you. And that's true and possible for everybody, right? Not just the spiritually gifted, right? And that actually comes from you. One of your quotes I've heard you say before. So what is the bigger vision that you see? Let's project forward for a minute. Like, let's let your mind project out, whether it be 5, 10, 25 years, how far you can see. What do you see for yourself and for the impact that you're going to make? What is the ripple effect? What is the larger vision?
I think the things that get me really, really excited to think about is like the high school experience. You know, I mean, like, yeah, it's interesting you ask that question, and like my mind doesn't go to like medicine achievements and stuff and becoming like all these accolades. Like that's not, yeah, that was interesting. Like family first. I'm really excited to see how having like two parents on board doing the work every day, plugging into their meeting, how that can affect someone's high school experience. Because the high school experience isn't pretty for anybody, and it's fun, has good moments, but like super vulnerable time of your life. And I'm really excited for our kids to be teenagers, so that I like let's see what the ripple effect can do. And my Mackenzie and I, my wife, we've always said like our home is a safe place and it's a sanctuary for like anybody who needs light or needs help, and it's a safe place for like our kids to grow and practice being. And I'm really excited to step into like watching them get older. And I know you can't like not like living through your kids or controlling
Yeah.
them, but just like giving them light, giving them freedom to grow, and just showing them what's possible and seeing
Yeah.
what they do. Um, as a in my professional career, I see like I'm really excited to try and build a team. Like mental illness and just mental health is so underserved everywhere, as I said before, especially in rural areas and in tribal populations. So how can one person make a difference? Trying to like professionally make a ripple effect where if I'm the only psychiatrist in an area or there's only a few of us, well, yeah, like absolutely. Let's build a team with therapists, with psychologists, with social workers. Like let's like how big can we spread the team to like really plug people in? Um, Spreading my expertise, learning from other people's expertise, kind of helping build networks amongst rural docs, where if there's rural psychiatrists everywhere that are by themselves and rural psychologists everywhere, well, like let's make our own team and let's plug in, and then we can help each other and have our own pool of expertise to draw from. Just trying to do anything I can to quarterback a team where you can spread your influence and your knowledge as much as possible, to just reach as many people as possible. I can only see so many patients in a day, and there's such a backlog of any physician everywhere. How do you start tackling that? And I think it's such a blessing that there's so many mid-level providers, and the accessibility to be a mid-level provider is there, so that yeah, like we can build teams so much faster now.
Yeah.
And I know this is maybe naivety and wishful thinking, but this is years down the road, so we have time to get there. But that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I love the team atmosphere. I'm aligned with that 100%. Like it all comes back to the team and starting with family. So we actually, in our family, in our home, because I'm so adamant about building teams, and teams are built by being good teammates. So whether it's our service industry company, or whether it's my coaching business and our team of coaches, like, how do we show up as a teammate is what matters to me. So I do the same thing with my kids and my wife. We evaluate ourselves as teammates. And the most important team, I believe, that gets overlooked of that we're trying to create, we all get very out there in the world of the hole we're going to fill, and what's my purpose. We tend to skip over the fact that the most important team that you're building is your kids, is your family.
Sorry, I'm gonna mute it.
You're all good.
Sorry, we'll edit that
No,
out.
but the most important team, somebody's popping into your room there. It's all good. So the most important team that we're creating is our family team. It's our home team. We call it the home team, right? It's a little Rocky Balboa there for you. So here's my last question for you. And I hope that people really listen, because if you've been listening to this podcast, you can't argue with the fact that there is a ton of wisdom coming from this young man, and the impact is going to be great. And it's not because he was born that way, because of his experiences in life and his just relentless attitude towards growth and healing, right? For himself first, then that makes it possible for others. And if we all took that approach within our own home team, communities, businesses, like, wow, the ripple effect would be endless. What is one thing, Colton, you would tell yourself if you could go back? You could tell yourself that's in the thick of it. So if someone's listening to this podcast, maybe they're in the thick of it. Maybe they've tried to get in to see a health professional, or maybe they've worked with other coaches and they still are in the thick of it. What is one thing you would tell that individual or yourself, if you're in the thick of it, to help them pull through, to help them keep going, to help them know, because you and I both know that when you're in that dark place, you don't see the windows. The door's not cracked open. You don't know what's next, and you don't feel like there is a next, right? The narrative is, what's the point? There is no way out. This is my existence. This is my experience. It's not going to change. This is going to last forever. So you can hear from us that this too shall pass, and there is hope, and, just keep going. But it's not our experience when we're in it. It's not our experience when we're in it. And it's really hard to even pick up on that when someone says that, hey, this too shall pass. Like, yeah, but you're not in here. You're not in here. So what's one thing that you would say to yourself or to somebody who's in the thick of it?
I would start by saying the path out is the journey in. To get out, there's nothing out there that you need to go and find. There's no tool that you need to go and get that's going to save you or be the magic bullet. It's working in. And one of the ways that the yogi's journey was explained to me is every day when we get on the mat and we do our practice, we're doing all these things to distract our body, to let go, to be in a totally different environment, to allow our mind freedom to journey inward and connect to deity, connect to our purpose, connect to our highest self. There's many names for what we're touching. And then maybe in this pose you get in it, you hold it for breath, and then you're back out. Maybe you don't get all the way in. But what we're doing is we're making that path so well worn that we can get there easier and easier because we know the way. And it gets easier to go there. It gets easier to stay there longer. And little by little, maybe we're bringing pieces of our house with us, and we're building our little house there. And eventually we just move there, and we can stay there forever. We're always plugged in. Maybe that's enlightenment. I don't know, but that'd sure be nice. Or that's just where we live. It's just plugged in all the time in the present moment. Because I think when we're really plugged into the present moment, we think, well, I don't want to focus on now because I'm hurting, and I don't want to focus on that pain. But when we look at the present moment as closely as we can, we're often hurting less than we think we are. Yeah. And we're often doing better than we think we are. And there's often less expected of us than we think there is. And all of a sudden we're in this position of ease. We thought that this was where the pain was focused, but this actually is the position of ease. And things start to melt and healing starts to occur. And it all comes from within, like body, mind, spirit. We're a self-healing unit. And Yes, absolutely. There's medicine that can help with that. There's people that can help with that. There's lots of outside resources that can help, but none of them are the magic bullet. The
Yeah.
key work at the end of it and at the beginning of it is like start working in.
Wow. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. And now the full circle comes from, we were talking in the beginning about the work that you do of helping people hold maybe a specific pose and breathe into it. And there's the physical component of that release that ends up happening, and their breath then reflects that. And you're now speaking of the mental and emotional and spiritual aspect of the only way out is to go within. Right. So don't be surprised if you see on our social media for the next 2 weeks a bunch of quotes that just came from Colton. We'll make sure that we give you credit, yeah, because there was a whole list of mic drops there, and I'm just so honored to be on this journey with you, to call you a friend, for our paths to have crossed, and for us to be able to add value to each other's lives, and just for this conversation. I mean, all the endless conversations we've had, and and that we're potential of going forward together as well. But, just super grateful for your time right now, for the work that you've put in, for the mission that you see and the hole that you're filling, and just wish you the absolute best. And again, just thank you so much for being you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I thank you, listeners, for your time, and I encourage you to reach out and to explore what that looks like for you to get out of your current situation, whether it be to improve a relationship, to be a better parent, to build a business, to make an impact, because you have a big goal, to achieve a goal, whatever that may be, is to figure out what it looks like for you. The path out is to go within, and for you to explore what we have to offer here at Integrated Mindset and IHP Coaching. We have a mini course coming up in the very near future, where we're going to be able to give you some very specific understanding of how to start that journey going within, so you can create the life that you desire. You can reach your goals. You can become who it is that you always known that you've meant to be, and you can legitimately make the impact that you're here to make, fill that hole that you're here to fill. So again, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you very soon.